I think for a lot of us, we're just spending a lot of our time like making a career to play concerts, to play concerts, to play those
More
concerts, to play
concerts.
these concerts, more concerts. Yeah, well, this is great. We're going to run faster. We're going to run faster along the same path. You almost don't have space to think about what's going on around you either.
Stay connected to the why, to the why are you here in the first place? Why are you doing this? We are learning that lesson hard this year.
Sure.
But I think many of us are finding that the why is a beautiful thing that, sometimes even had to get put in a little bit of a drawer because we were busy doing so many other things.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. We're all so driven, and we feel like we're kind of balanced. We feel like we live a like balanced lifestyle generally, but except for because we're musicians, it like takes up so much of who we are that when it takes up of everything of who we are, we don't notice it.
I don't know if you remember this. We talked on the phone, I think, like the day after or a couple days after you posted your video. You were having this real recognition of the things that you hadn't made time for. And you were feeling sad, I think, about it. And just kind of recognizing a shift, like an abrupt shift in priority. Do you remember the space you were in that moment?
Yeah, no, I remember really clearly because I was obsessed. I was determined and I was obsessed that day with whatever this was. Maybe it was a cry out to the world. I probably took, I don't know, 30 different takes in order to like play the clarinet better in it, but also not to like get it right. Because what I knew about this is that I wanted to get this right.
And isn't that interesting to think about all of the high pressure moments, like the make it or break it moments of your whole life in music, right? All the auditions and premieres and, really high profile moments. And probably that feeling had never happened before, this feeling of having to get it right because it's something so much bigger.
It was something so, so much bigger. There were things that have been building probably for 30 years, actually, in my mind, in my spirit about these issues and about what to do about them. I think I was like inspired to start thinking more about what I was doing as a clarinet player in the world by meeting Clarence Jones. He was a lawyer for Dr. King, and he was a former clarinet player. And this meeting, I played for him and we talked, and he put his arm around me, and like I think in that moment I actually realized for the maybe the first time where I was in the world and like what my place in it was and what the possibilities of what I could do to help our community. I felt like all of a sudden, like he put his arm around me, and like I felt like I was in the movement. Like it was the first time I felt like that connection so viscerally, like in my body, physically, in the present. And so I think I had that stored up. And a couple months before the George Floyd kind of tipped it, the tipping point.
My parents met during the civil rights movement, and I grew up with that history. Like that's the backdrop to my life. That's the reason that I'm here. And I always felt like I wasn't able to do anything real for the movement. I think it takes a test. It takes a moment when the test is step up, show up, and I'm incredibly grateful to have this test.
You never think, oh wait, I can change and I can affect more people in that space than I ever thought possible, because they're not that far away. This is kind of a funny thing, but since we're, talking about such personal things, over the last year or two, I've been, meditating, and I've been doing, one of my favorites is to do loving kindness meditation, where you think outside of yourself and you basically send wishes to people, to the world, to animals, to the universe. Some of the things and actions and thoughts and I've had all summer, it has been probably inspired by that whole concept of sending energies outward in a loving kindness sort of way. But even if it is something against violence, against negativity, we think about the self constantly, in our world of on that treadmill. As musicians, we think about ourselves a lot too, So like to have it be a little bit different, that as a musician, I start to think about how me as a musician can send that energy, direct it to some particular place that needs it.
Well, it's a gift, right? The reason that we make music is because we have a gift to do that. It's a gift that we are supposed to give forward. I think we should promise ourselves from now on that every single day we make sure that it's never getting lost in the noise.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think it's so easy to lose track of what the purpose is, what your gift can do, and what you're going to do with it, and for whom, and why. And it takes something so terrible and things that are so terrible for us to really see that we do have power. We do have that connection with others.
I grew up as a little pianist with a lot of teachers, a lot of stories behind them of the Holocaust, and music as this survival mechanism, and music that you took with you to a new land and to a new life. And that informed a lot of the way I went into being a musician. Like, this is a serious thing. This is the only thing you have when you have to flee for your life. You take your music with you, and then what do you do with it when you get to the new place? I think we're all trying in our small ways to fix the world, and that's the way things get fixed. It's small actions coming together. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's this spirit in those actions, the loving kindness that you're talking about. I feel it. I feel all of this energy going out, into the big world. I mean, it's a big world out there, and we're putting it out so hard. And I keep thinking about us as the leaders of the next generation. What does that mean? I think, maybe it's the same thing that I took from my teacher who had to, escape from a concentration camp. It's this message that this music is the tool that you carry through your life to survive and to fix things.
Right. I remember a note I made during one of the John Jay College Justice Awards ceremonies. And the speaker was Elie Wiesel. And this was one of those moments where I took out my phone in the middle of the thing to take notes about what he was saying. And what the main message was that there were so many people that could have said something. And I wrote it down. It was like, you cannot not say something. We often think, like everyone else thinks, that nobody wants to hear from me about whatever issue, what I think about this or that. They just want to hear my interpretation of the Brahms sonata, you know?
But I want to say something about that, and it's about ambassadorship. My son, during COVID, has become obsessed with jazz, which is awesome. So we talk about jazz all the time, and we were talking about Duke Ellington yesterday. And I was explaining, that the Duke was an ambassador and an activist, like in a way that some people felt he wasn't being enough of an activist, but saying something with every note, always. And I think that, we also see ourselves as ambassadors, and we carry that with us with every note we ever play. And I remember so clearly, I want to tell you this. I remember long before we knew each other, the first time I ever saw you was at Obama's inauguration. And I'm sure thousands and thousands of people have told you what that meant. But, there's a moment when your ambassadorship and your duty for activism that just come together. And it's very humbling, and it's overwhelming. And it's also, I think it's a tremendous gift.
I've never thought of myself as something, except a clarinetist and a musician, really. That's it. Those were my kind of like labels.
Mm-hmm.
By expressing myself, like with that duty that you mentioned, I have expanded and blown apart whatever labels that I kind of took to be my only labels, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Look, I think the greatest activists that we admire and worship of the past didn't label themselves as activists.
Right.
The jazz greats who had to live, in a time where they weren't allowed to enter the front door of any place that they played and had to just go through, nightmares of indignity in order to do their work. They were not going through all of that and confronting all that because they wanted to be heroes. They just wanted to make music.
Right. Yeah, sometimes in the act of living, you're a revolutionary.
Yes.
In the act of living as a Black person traveling around the South in the 50s or 60s, 70s, trying to live your life, you're a radical. In the act of hopping on a bus and sitting in the wrong place, you're a revolutionary, you're an activist, you're a radical. But if you think about it, no, those were acts of people. Those were acts of human beings going about their day.
So let's use that label, human being.
Yeah.